Hello there everyone, it's been a long time since I uploaded a video from the Darkroom. I believe it's been 6 months. And for those who don't know what had happened in the 6 months, my Darkroom timer had broken last year when I had made a replacement based on an Arduino microcontroller. Then I had put that on Indiegogo as a crowdfunding campaign, and people had liked the campaign. A lot of people wanted to see the project become a real thing. In the 6 months, I spent most of that time and the funding to develop the concept even further, design and build a way more advanced product than I had initially showed to everyone at the crowdfunding campaign, and I'm quite happy with how it ended up. However, I'm about 2 months late. The initial plan was to ship them in July, we are in September. I'm almost ready to ship, I'm just waiting on delivery of some final crucial parts, and hopefully they will be shipped very soon. I have been updating the project page, showcasing what I've done, what were the changes, what had happened, and what were some of the difficulties that I had faced. And in this video I will be showcasing the almost final product with the almost final firmware. Keep in mind that there are a few bugs that you will see in this video. Those are being ironed out as I noticed them. Also, everyone who has a timer will be able to update them, so anytime I add new features or fix anything or change anything, people will be able to just download the new firmware and update their devices. Now let's take a closer look and see what has changed since the initial prototype. On the left you see the original prototype that I've used in the original videos and the crowdfunding, and on the right is the almost final prototype that I just mentioned, except that this one is in silver. I guess that makes it the silver edition, and the difference between the silver edition and the black edition that were offered in the crowdfunding campaign is that the silver edition is not painted, it's just raw aluminum. It's not up for sale unless anyone wants to have theirs in raw aluminum, I guess. I just haven't received the black painted parts yet. They have been cut, but I'm still waiting on the delivery of the black paint, which is one of the parts I need to have before making the final assembly and shipping the products. Let's compare the two and see what has been changed, and I will also showcase the new user interface and how you operate the timer in the new design. The finish might make it seem a bit different, but from the top actually they are exactly the same. The silver makes it a bit hard to see, but I have one of the original body panels here, and except for the area around the dials, which have been made larger, you can actually see the original and the final dimensions of the top plate are exactly the same. From the sides, however, it's quite different. The old one is basically a brick. This was a modular design. There are no pre-made PCBs inside. It uses a full-size Arduino Mega, and I had made everything by hand. I was replacing all the modules, all the wiring quite often, so it had to be much thicker than the final product. I always knew that the final product would be much slimmer, but yet at the same time the original design language would be the same. This is the almost final case, save for the paint, and as you see it's way slimmer, and it's also a lot cleaner than the original design. I have removed the front and the back covers because at the end of this video I will perform a complete disassembly. I want to show you what's inside. I want to show you all the design phases went through and some of the possibilities of expanding the product in the future. Now let's power them on. The old one is not connected to anything. I have removed the power brick because for this video we will be using the other one. So I will just be powering this one with a USB cable. And here it's booting up. It's version 0.4.6c, and here it is booted up. Now let's turn the new one on. The new one is also at this moment unplugged, but the power brick that will come with it has actually been plugged in, and it has a default state. When no controller is connected, it will just turn my room lights on. That setting you can adjust in the menu. Now let's turn the controller on. And by default it's turned off. But to turn on, just press the dial. You can already see there are a few differences between those two. The new one has a different screen with quite a different interface, but the overall design language is the same. On the right you still have the countdown timer. On the left is your grade reminder, which reminds you which grade you are supposed to use for the exposure, in this case 00, the low contrast one. On the top you have the memory buttons. You can recall different memory settings for different prints. You have your two custom buttons here, and there's the other noticeable changes that the LED rings around the dials have been reworked. They now work as part of the interface. The goal of reworking the whole interface, using extra digits, using a different LCD, was so that we could display the information better. The user would see what's going on in a more meaningful way, and it would make an overall easier to use interface. In the old version we only had a 4-row screen which was capable of only displaying characters. In the new one we have the graphical display, which means I will be able to draw something if I want to, or in case I want to use different fonts to signify something, I'll be able to do that. In the old one, the only way of navigating the main menu was the left one would scroll up and down, go to base time or the select grade, and with the right one you would scroll through all the functions. And that wasn't really obvious at the first sight because you didn't know what each button did. You had to know it by muscle memory because I did not have an extra row of information on the screen. In the new one, in the middle you see it says base time, and on this corner it says menu, which means this will make you scroll through the menu. So you can just go through test strip, dodge, burn, compensate, options, all the settings with the left one, and you will also see the LED tracks your changes. So it gives you a visual information that also helps you obtain a better muscle memory. On the right one it says 0.5 seconds. On the old system, if you want to change the base time, for instance, you would have to go to the base time menu to say the left one makes 1 second adjustments and the right one makes 0.1 second adjustments. In the new one, right from the main menu, it says 0.5 seconds. So while you can use the left one to scroll through the menus, you can just use the right one directly to make some changes to the base time as you please. If you want to go to more detail, you can just click enter, and then it's just the same. The left one makes 1 second adjustments and the right one makes 0.1 second adjustments. If you want to go faster, just click on either of the dials, then they become 10 second and 1 second dialed, so you can just easily dial in any time that you would like, or you can just reset it easily. If you want to go to f-stop mode, it's the same. Press the enter button, but again, that wasn't obvious that the middle button changed into the f-stop mode. In this one, it says f-stop mode in the middle. Just click it, then you can just dial in your f-stop adjustment directly. If you want to go to the main menu, just press the enter key for a long time, or actually press any of these buttons for a long time and it will just take you to the base menu. And if I want to make an exposure, it's still the same method, but with a slight twist. It's still the button under the countdown time which triggers the exposure, but the first time I press it, it will just turn my safe light on, and the second press will actually start the exposure. If you want to turn the room lights back on, just press the button just right next to the expose button, and you'll also see as you press it, it will say room lights on the LCD as it toggles. Now let's take a deeper dive. One of the most liked features of the original concept was how it would easily make f-stop based test strips. And in the original you'd just scroll to test strip mode, click, a bunch of text, try to inform you what's going on, and this was the old test strip interface. The right one and the left one again adjust your base time, and then you click the button to go to your parameters. And the parameters are as follows: the number of strips you want, the interval you want. Mine are usually just 7 strips and half a stop. And there are two more parameters underneath additive, and if you just scroll this one over, individual. I have renamed this actually. The additive mode is when you make a test strip on a single piece of paper, and the individual mode is when you use a different piece of paper for each test strip. And then we have the base setting. Base plus plus would mean base time would be the shortest time on the test strip. And again, if you just scroll this over to the other end, minus base plus would be base time would be the time in the middle. So half of the strips would be longer and half would be shorter. Then you just click. Right now we're in the individual mode, so you get 7 different pieces of paper, as good as I could show them on the old interface. Then you could choose a direction if you want the shortest time first, or if you want the longest time first. Then you would just hit start. It will tell you just place one piece of paper, then place the next one, then the next one, and so on. I will just go through them, cancel them all, and at the end you will choose which one you like the best. You could refine them, retry, cancel, or just accept one. As you see, as I scroll around, the base time changes depending on which strip I select. The new one again is quicker. What you got to do is just go to the test strip mode, and you see there's a little change here. As I've said, all my test strips are usually just done the same way. I just want 7 strips with half stops between them. All I usually need to change is the base time. Again, I'm right on the main menu. I can just change the base time from the main menu. Whether I had selected base time or test strip, it still says half a second. When test strip is selected, you'll see the middle progress bar acting up weirdly. What it's trying to tell you is you will just slowly cover, starting with the shortest time. And here it says L7.5. L is the linear mode, which used to be called the additive mode before. 7 is the number of strips, 0.5 is the interval in f-stop. So all I have to do right now is place a piece of paper in here. Let me check. This is where I want it. Just start exposing. And you see, now I have to cover the first part, the second part, and so on. And while I'm exposing, you can see the right dial tracks my whole exposure time, while the left one tracks the total time. So when both of them hit 0, I know my exposure has ended. Then develop the strip, and again use the left one to select which one I like the best. And on the right one I can use again the same settings: OK, refine, retry. Let's go refine. When I click refine, it selects that strip's base time, 9.9 seconds, and it will choose completely different settings: 5 strips, 0.2. If I want to highlight them, now the left one changes number of strips, originally 5. Since I want to refine it, I want much tighter spread, which is 0.2 steps. I want the base time in the middle and in the distinctive mode. 5, distinctive in the middle, 0.2. And if I were at the home page, if I want to change those settings, I could just enter, and that's the screen that would come up. Press it, it will display what's going to happen, and just start the exposure at the next step. Or instead, instead of going through all these settings, just click expose from the main menu. And in the distinctive mode, you might notice, let's wait until this one ends. In distinctive mode, you might notice the middle bar is acting differently now. It's lighting up one by one. because it's trying to say you're in the distinctive mode. You will just expose them one by one, the shortest one first, the longest one the last. So I'm supposed to put the next paper, start the exposure, and that's another way to make all the test strips. Now, another quite well received feature of the original concept was add dodge and burn actions. Just go to dodge, click enter, then you could use the right one to scroll through up to 9 different dodge actions, and use the left one to either edit, exit, reset, which clears everything, and clear just this individual one. Just edit, click enter, then you'd be able to know if you're making a print, you want to dodge a subject for 0.6 stops, and that's subject A, B, C, D, E, F, or maybe you want to dodge a corner or an edge section. Just click, then go exit, and when you start the exposure, it will first count the time down, and then it would remind you to dodge the left side of the paper, and this was the best impression of a paper that I could get on the original display. In the new system, you still go to dodge and click enter. If you don't want to make an area setting, you can just use the right one to make, for instance, 0.7 steps of dodging. An area will automatically pop up. If you want to edit, just click, and then you can choose a corner or like an edge section again, or just again A, B, C, D, E, F. Let's go for the corner and go back and go to home page. And when I make an exposure now, again, first click turns the safe light on, second click makes the main exposure. Let's remove this fake piece of paper from there, and then it reminds me to dodge the top right section. So I will just get a mask, click start, and do this, which is quite meaningless in this photo, but you get the idea. Another addition that I made, apart from all the UI changes, is, let's say you are making the exposure, and initial exposure is easy, you don't have to do anything. But then you have to dodge for 2.8 seconds, and maybe 2.8 seconds is too short for you. Then you can just, the right one says slow, just turn it up and it will slow it down, and each click will just slow it down half a stop. So just make it slower by 1.5 steps and close the aperture of your lens by 1.5 steps. It will automatically calculate the time. So when I click, I can just take my time, dodge the area for 8 seconds. It's way more comfortable now. And at the end of the exposure, it will actually cancel it, because it will just assume that you had returned your aperture to the original value, to the original setting, so it will just cancel itself. And one of the next projects will be the LED enlarger that I've mentioned quite a few times. And with the LED enlarger, you won't even have to change your aperture, since the LEDs will have variable power adjustment. If you just slow it down, it will just decrease the intensity so that you will be able to have extended dodge and burn times. I'm even thinking of adding a auto slow option, which will increase all slow dodge and burn times to 10 seconds by adjusting the intensity of the light source automatically. That will be one of the features that will set the LED enlarger apart from everything else on the market. You also still have the burn menu. You can just add, it's just exactly the same. The mats behind them is different, but how it works is exactly the same. You just click, turns the lights off, remove the fake piece of paper from underneath the enlarger, just click, makes the exposure, it reminds you to dodge, just click here, make a fake dodge action, and it will say burn subject A. Maybe I want to make this one slower. Okay, this is a bug, this shouldn't have happened. there's something wrong going on here. I'm gonna fix that, and then just, you know, make a burn action to your subject A for 15 seconds, which is way more comfortable. When this one ends, it will just go back to the original setting. The next time you make exposure, you always have to change the slow setting every single time, because you are expected to open your aperture to the original setting. If you just want to make everything slower, you can just go to the compensate menu. The compensate setting has also been showcased in the original idea. It's got to compensate, and you can make an f-stop compensation with your enlarger setting. If you want to go from f4.5 to 6.7, for instance, it would automatically compensate for you. Or if you want to adjust a change in length, for instance, you made an original print and the edge was 12 centimeters, inches, whatever, and you want to make a new print and it will measure 21, same unit, inches, centimeters, whatever, just click and it will automatically compensate your time. And the third setting was, of course, make a manual compensation with the f-stops. In the new one, you still get all the settings, but again, to make everything faster, you remember how from the base menu you can change your base time in half-second intervals? If you go to compensate menu, that becomes an f-stop key. So you can just make an f-stop adjustment and it will display it on the main menu. You don't have to go to base time, click to go to the f-stop mode. You don't have to do that. You can just make the adjustment from the main menu. On top of everything, I want to show you something. Just go to compensate menu and turn the enlarger on. Now you have a light probe that goes underneath the enlarger. Let's take a measurement, and it's displaying the light change as I move this around. If I go to this part, for instance, that's much darker, or this section is much lighter. How it works is, for instance, you made a test print and you said, alright, this section was fine, but I want to make it look like this part. And it says, oh, it's a one stop of difference. You need to make an adjustment of one stops. Or, for instance, if I just take a reading here, then I will just raise the enlarger. I don't have to measure anything now. So this is this much slower, and it will just compensate the base time. I will just go into more detail in another video, I guess. Let's go back. One of the most requested features from an enlarger timer is to make split grade prints. And you see on the left we had the grade miner display. If you press the custom button, clear button underneath, it will just switch to the different channel, channel B in this case. And on this channel you can have, let's go to the base menu, you can have a different base time, you can have a different base time. If you go to the grade menu, you can just adjust it again without going into a deeper menu. Just high contrast, grade 5. Then just go to the other channel, and that's already on grade 00. So let's make this shorter. Let's make this shorter for demonstration purposes. So when assuming I'm making a split grade print, it will remind me to use a 00 filter. Click, turns the room lights off, click again, starts the exposure, finishes it, 0.75, let's make it slower. Five seconds, expose it, dodge the area, then dodge subject A, and when it's finished, just click the channel button, go to the other channel, insert your high contrast grade, just start the second exposure, and now you just made a split grade print. On the top you still have your 6 memory buttons, so you actually have 6 memory positions, each with 2 channels. That's 12 different timings for you. And if you don't want to use every single channel for making a print, you can actually use it as a develop timer. The color mode it just turns every light off before starting the countdown. Develop to time your fixer bath, to time a paper flasher that is connected to one of your electrical sockets on the power brick, or just make a normal print, single grade, low contrast, high contrast. So, one feature I will add quite soon is the ability to make Solarize prints. One of the contributors had suggested that he was making Solarize prints and he wanted to trigger a light bulb above his developer tray. So there will be just an Solarize mode here. When you start it, it will tell you to start developing, it will count down the time for you, and at the right time it will just turn the light bulb on and off, giving you a Solarize effect. These are the basic functions that I wanted to showcase in this video. There will be other videos that I will shoot and upload shortly, and in the meantime I'm working with the assembly, ironing out a few sudden problems that have been emerged, trying to fix those. I'm hoping to ship as soon as possible, and the next videos will be about how to set up the accessories, how to use the accessories, how to use the film developer accessory that will be available at launch, and setting up all the options, setting up the power bar, that kind of stuff. And for the rest of this video I'm going over to the disassembly part.